You know, we often think of catastrophes as these huge, sudden events, a massive explosion, a declaration of war. But what if they're not? What if they creep up on you, step by quiet, deliberate step? In this explainer, we're going to trace exactly that kind of path, based on a first-hand account, from a life of faith and community all the way to the sealed doors of a cattle car. We're going to see how a whole town was lulled into a false sense of security, walking straight towards a cliff they just couldn't or maybe wouldn't see.
So let's start with a quote that just sends a shiver down your spine. This is from a man named Moshe the Beetle, and it really sets the stage for this entire tragedy. He literally saw the end. He experienced his own death, and he came back to warn everyone. But here's the thing. The truth he was carrying was just so horrifying, nobody could bring themselves to believe him.
To really get how this all went down, we've got to rewind. Let's set the scene. It's 1941, and we're in a small Transylvanian town called Sighet. At the center of our story is this young kid, almost 13 years old, and his entire world revolves around studying, praying, and two very, very different men.
And these two guys could not be more different. They're like two opposite poles of influence in his life. On one side, you've got Moshe the Beetle. He's poor, kind of invisible to most people, but he's the narrator's spiritual guide into the world of Kabbalah. On the other side, you've got his father, a respected, pragmatic community leader who's way more involved in public affairs than with his own family. One man represents a deep, mystical way of seeing the world, the other, a grounded public reason. And believe me, that tension is going to be a huge deal.
Okay, so now we get to the moment where the first crack appears in their reality. It's an event that, tragically, is almost immediately forgotten. This is where the whole idea of war goes from something abstract you hear about on the radio to a real, tangible horror, and it's delivered by a man no one is prepared to believe.
And here it is, the first move. The police show up and round up all the foreign Jews, including Moshe. It's a sad day at the train station, for sure. But once that train is gone, it's like the memory of those people disappears with it. The town just kind of shrugs and says, well, that's war for you. Pretty soon, rumors start spreading that they're just fine, working somewhere in Galicia. And just like that, life goes back to normal.
But then, Moshe comes back, and the story he tells is just pure, unimaginable horror. This isn't war as they know it. This is systematic extermination. He's talking about the Gestapo taking over the train, people being forced to dig their own graves, even babies being used as target practice. I mean, it is an absolute nightmare, and he's a living witness. And you can just see how it absolutely broke him. The man who left was this dreamer who was always singing and talking about divine mysteries. The man who came back, he was a ghost. All the joy was just gone. He didn't sing anymore. The trauma completely gutted him, and all that was left was this burning, desperate need to make other people listen. And this is where the town's psychological defense mechanisms just go into overdrive. Because the truth is so monstrous, they literally can't process it. So what do? They attack the messenger. They say he must just want their pity, or worse, that he's gone completely mad. Because, think about it, it's so much easier to call one guy crazy than to accept that your entire world is on the verge of collapse. So eventually Moshe just goes quiet. He gives up. And for over a year, life actually continues. The news on the radio even sounds encouraging, like the war is turning. But then, in the spring of 1944, German troops roll into Sighet. The threat is no longer distant, it's right there. And yet, astonishingly, people are still optimistic. And this is where it gets really insidious. The German soldiers, they're not what anyone expected. They're polite, they're quiet, they rent rooms in Jewish homes. One of them even brings a box of chocolates. It's this brilliant, terrifying piece of psychological warfare. By being so normal, they completely disarm the community and feed right into that desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, everything is going to be okay. Yeah, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The Germans are there. The political reality has shifted under their feet. The verdict is already in, and yet they're still smiling. It's this profound, tragic disconnect between the reality of the situation and what they're allowing themselves to believe. The danger is literally living down the street.
And then, the hammer drops. It's the 7th day of Passover, and the leaders of the Jewish community are arrested, just like that. In that moment, the illusion of safety completely shatters. And what follows is this incredibly fast, systematic process of stripping away every single one of their freedoms. Let's walk through exactly how they did it.
You can see how deliberate this is. It's that classic boiling the frog strategy. First, it's a curfew. Okay, we can deal with that. Then they have to hand over all their valuables. Not great, but all right. Then comes the humiliating yellow star. And even the narrator's pragmatic father says, so what? It's not lethal. Each step normalizes the oppression, making the next one feel inevitable, until boom, they're being sealed inside ghettos. And here is the most mind-bending part. At first, they actually feel like the ghetto isn't so bad. It is the final tragic illusion. They're thinking, hey, at least we're all together now. No more hostile faces. They set up their own council, their own police. For a brief moment, they believe this prison is actually a sanctuary. The ghetto, we're told, was ruled by delusion. But that delusion doesn't last. It all comes crashing down during a late-night meeting of the Jewish Council. The news is out. The ghettos are being liquidated. That slow-creeping catastrophe we've been talking about, it just hit the accelerator. Now it's a frantic race toward an unknown, terrifying destination. And right here we see the last chance, the final opportunity to get out. A friend of the family, a Hungarian police inspector, comes to the window to warn them, just like he promised he would. But their windows are sealed shut. It's like a perfect metaphor for their situation, right? By the time they manage to get one open, he's gone. The warning just vanished into the night. And then comes this moment that's just crushing. The narrator's father, the strong one, the unsentimental pillar of the community, he breaks down and cries. The narrator had never, ever seen him cry before. And that's the real signal, isn't it? When the rock of the community finally breaks, you know that all hope is officially gone. From here, their whole world just unravels with shocking speed. A key moment is when their former maid offers them a safe place to hide. But they refuse. They don't want to be separated. And that one choice, made out of love, tragically seals their fate. In less than a week, they go from their homes to the ghetto to being held in a synagogue like animals, waiting for the final march. After all the chaos, the rules, and the tears, the horror all boils down to this one stark number: 80. 80 human beings packed into a car built for cattle. All of their individual lives, their stories, their families, none of it matters anymore. They're not people. They're just a number. It's the ultimate act of dehumanization. And the journey begins. The cars are sealed shut. But it doesn't end with a big, violent scene. No, it ends with two Gestapo officers just casually strolling down the platform, smiling. It's such a chilling image. They're just watching the train pull away like it's any other day at work. A long whistle blows, the wheels start to grind, and the Jews of Siget are on their way into the night. Which leaves us with this huge, haunting question at the center of it all. How does this happen? How does a whole community start to believe something that seems completely unbelievable? Is it because the horror comes in tiny, incremental steps? Is it because they silence the voices trying to warn them? Or is it simply because of that deeply human and deeply vulnerable instinct to hope, even when all the signs are pointing towards the abyss? It's a question that echoes far beyond this one story, and it forces us to think about how we perceive and react to creeping catastrophes in our own time.